From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Out and About Today. Sponsored by the Tennessee Performing Arts Center.
Welcome to Out and About Today. I'm Brent Meredith. We have got a great show for you tonight on how personal fitness has evolved. And it's kind of been 2 years in the making, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But first, I'm joined by my co-host Pam Wheeler and our very special guest, fitness and nutrition coach Daniel Buckley for the Buzz About. Let's start buzzing, you guys. Good to see you.
Hey, Brent, thanks so much for having me back.
Oh, of course. And there's Pam. And of course, you know, as I mentioned just a second ago, it was about 2 years ago, and you were on the show, Daniel. You came on, you talked with Pam, and then I popped into the segment, and we decided we were going to do a 6-month challenge. So just curious, Pam, oh, there it is, from December 2019. How's your 6 months been going? Pam, how have you done?
Oh, it feels like a long 6 months, Brent. And let me just go on record and say, I give up. You win, okay? You know, we did that show exactly 2 years ago, and then the pandemic hit, and we were on lockdown. And I joke with you guys that my diet for a short time, you know, consisted of a lot of potato chips, a lot of White Claw, and a lot of Little Debbie's. So I did gain some pandemic weight, as maybe some other people did.
But, you know, same here. And I mean, we got through those 6 months, and I tried to keep it going. And I think just to try to keep my sanity, having something to do was fantastic. But Daniel, I'm curious to know from you, how did it initially affect your business and maybe even your clients? We know how it affected our segment and our challenge, but for your business, it must have been a shocker, right?
Yeah, it was a big shocker. Luckily, most of my business was already online coaching, so that kind of became the norm with the pandemic. And I just quickly changed over people's workout programs to, I would call it a COVID body. And I'm like, okay, we're going to go resistance bands, body weight exercises, whatever you can do. If it's just walking in the neighborhood, just ensuring that you continue moving, because not just the physiological benefits of that, but also psychological, because it was just such a big mental health hit with the unknown of COVID and huge twist. So luckily, though, I was able to adapt, and, you know, I stopped with my in-person clients, but then I was able to transition them to online. And, you know, most people still maintain some sort of activity, but definitely fell off a bit. I mean, I do this for a living, and I fell off completely for a minute.
Well, and that's comforting to hear. You know, misery loves company, right? So it's nice to know that, you know, we're not the only ones, that the people who do this for a living can be affected too. But as you mentioned, you kind of already set up in a good way to be ready, and that you already had online clients. And that's sort of how Pam and I started with our goal, or with our challenge rather. And that for me was kind of hard on the front end, but now 2 years in, we're still working together. I've found sort of joy in that. And as you say, getting up and doing something, I think one of my favorite lines of yours, it's better to do something than nothing. And that thought will go through my mind on days when I'm really tired and don't want to do the whole workout. But you know, once you get started, that momentum usually pushes you through. So with all that said, though, we have dealt with you know, a lot in 2 years. So how does one go about now? And Pam, I'll start with you, because I know, you know, you've had time in between as well. How do you go about setting your sort of realistic goals for your fitness and for your mental health in a world that's often not realistic anymore, or not the same realism that we once had?
I wish I had answers, Brent, and I'm sure Daniel can speak to this. I always, for as long as I know, start off January like it's my job to eat so clean and not have sweets and not drink and not do sugar so much. I've got my calendar here where I log all my exercise and my food, and I'll go, you know, 30, 45 days and just knock it out of the park. And then I just want to go crazy after. And so I constantly struggle with what you just spoke of, remembering instead of doing nothing, do something. And I haven't learned that yet. I do have some, I'm getting a physical in about a month, and I want to see some numbers that look better in terms of cholesterol. So that is a game changer. But leave it to myself. And I'm just terrible at the long game. I know what to do. I really do. I feel like it's not a mystery. To eat whole foods and leave out processed junk and move more and eat less. I mean, it's just so hard.
Well, Daniel, I feel like I've volleyed you up can you share some of your wisdom as far as what Pam is going through? Because I think I have told you all of those same things in the last 2 years at one point or another.
Yeah, and it is hard. COVID was a huge mental health shift, right? And so it was a grievance of so many different activities that we were used to doing. The sense of normalcy went out of the water. So people typically do set goals, and they'll do what you said, Pam. They'll go 30, 45 days. They'll be really consistent. And then reality sets in of, oh, you just tried to change your entire life in 30, 45 days, and something hits to where, like a COVID thing, or maybe you had a loss in the family, or a job change, or a move, or just life in general, and you can't follow through with it. So what I had a bunch of clients do at the beginning of this year was reflect on last year, see all of the accomplishments that you had last year. What are you proud of, and what was successful? And think about, well, what do I want to look at next year and say, how do I want to see my life? And then kind of boil that down to one particular habit, which sounds kind of boring, but that's really how we make a change in our life, right? It's the habits that we have. So, you changed your food, your workout program, all of these things you're tracking, which is phenomenal, because that's a sense of accountability. And accountability partners are huge. But eventually reality sets in, and if you had really just focused on one habit, let's say just movement, and not really stressed about the diet, maybe you did start eating healthier, but not really beat yourself up if you mess up, but you're still moving your body. Well, if you're still moving your body in November this year, then that's a habit that you've established that's probably not going to go away. And that would be my biggest suggestion, is just focus on one thing. You're not going to see a dramatic change, but if you sustain that for years to come, that's whenever the differences are made.
That is really excellent advice,
sense.
Daniel. And I've heard, he's given me that a couple of times, Pam, for different things. The reason I'm jumping in is we've only got a few seconds left here before we go to the break. But the last thing I wanted to mention was that the other piece of advice that sticks with me a lot, Daniel, and I think Pam can value this too, is that we're, not to use a sports metaphor, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. You're trying to create a lifelong goal of doing things as good as you can. There's no set deadline like, I've got to have a beach body by next weekend, or I'm going to die, that type of thing. Do you find yourself falling into that habit, Pam, like having these arbitrary deadlines?
Gosh, yeah. I make jokes all the time around the house, like, okay, I've got this, I need down 20 pounds. And I'm kidding, but I do that all the time. I'm kind of kidding.
Same here. And I do have to take us to break here real quick, and we'll be right back. But we will be right back after the break with tips on how to set up personal fitness goals and stick with them in an ever-changing world. You'll want to hear more of this discussion. Please stay with us.